Good evening. Welcome to the Leadership Circle. It's Tuesday and we're back. We're here. I've got JR, I've got Deana every Tuesday coming in live, getting together, gathering and having open conversation, discussion, dialogue about different topics. Want to first off say thank you for all those that came over to the page, all of you that are on the inside of the circle. Some of you are watching this video here and now or watching the replay. We want to say thank you and we appreciate your support. Today, we're talking about expectations, the pros and cons of expectations, and this conversation will go wherever it goes. We were having a little bit of chat earlier, and it's quite interesting. So we invite you in to the Leadership Circle. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to both of you while I get going on live and share this on my Facebook. Expectations, pros and cons, where do we go? Take it away.
Yeah, you want to run with it?
Sure. Well, first off, I guess we can look at what is an expectation, right? If we look at the definition, and so there can be multiple definitions or multiple ways of viewing it. Kind of just looking it up, it's a desired outcome. In math, it's an expected value, which makes sense, right? Because in math, you'd use the word to to define in part, like in the definition, but also believing that something should be a certain way. And I think the key word there is should. But prior to delving in a little bit more, I think the super awesome thing about this topic is it can go anywhere. And by no means is there one answer or one way of looking at it. So, you know, we invite you to chime in as well and share some of your thoughts as we're going through this. But kind of, you know, going back to believing that something should be a certain way, should. Thoughts,
Right.
Jay?
And so, you know, there's a lot of thoughts that, you know, expectations can lead to disappointment. And if you bring no expectations into something, then, you know, you can allow it to turn into whatever it's going to turn into. There is the whole surrendering and releasing control when you don't have expectations. And I've found even as simple as a movie, the movies that I've seen that have been really great or that I really loved were ones that I didn't hear were going to be great. You know, so it was unexpectedly fabulous. And so the ones where, you know, people tell me, oh, this movie's awesome, or the one I'm hearing about and waiting to see, you know, I build up that expectation. And, you know, there's a couple of movies like Ace Ventura when I was a kid. I remember seeing, I never even heard of it. And I just was crying, laughing. I had no expectations. And it was just so that you can be pleasantly surprised without expectations, you know. That's one way I could go with it.
There's so many different ways that this can go. And I find myself in a kind of a dichotomy of both angles. And so I appreciate this. And we were talking about what a great conversation it can be. It's the optimum result is only available when I have zero expectations on the outcome. And so that's one way to look at it. And we're talking about expectations. We're talking about, for me, what comes up is I'm thinking, okay, if I have an expectation on a desired result, that's important, is it not, to have an expectation or a goal or a vision or a direction of what it is or where it is that I want to go or I'm looking to achieve? Well, yeah, I think that's important, but at the same time, not to get too attached to that. One of my tattoos says, expect the unexpected. I put it on like 20 years ago, and that's come true so many different ways, both in good and both in not so good. But I find the expectation of goal setting is important to have a direction. And I think for me, what's coming up, and I'm going to toss it back around here, is just not to get too attached to the end result. Because then we're like, it has to look a certain way. If the shiny object is the destination of whatever it is that we want to achieve, and we get into the position of like, it has to look this way, and that's the only way, we cut off every and all possibilities. And we've talked about this before, anything else that can even flow through. So not getting too attached on the specifics. And I'll take it away. I'll let you guys jam on that for a second. It's interesting. I can go in many different ways with this. I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
I'm just thinking of the little parable or story of the person who was drowning, right? And then there was like, they kept kind of praying, like, you know, like, God save me, or, you know, they wanted to be saved. And what was it, like a boat came by and it was just like, you know, like we're trying to save you. And it's like, no, I'm good. God's going to save me. Or like a helicopter came by and it's like, nope, God's going to save me. And they end up, you know, passing and transitioning, and kind of asking God, like, dude, I was like really hoping for you to save me. Like, what happened? He's like, I sent you all those, you know, I sent you the boat, I sent you the helicopter, I sent you like all these other ways of for you to be saved, and you kind of didn't take them. So this like that rigidity of it needed to look a certain way. It's like, how did you even, like, how do we not recognize the other resources and the tools that are kind of being thrown at us in that process?
And with expectations, you know, if I were like an attorney, I'm married to one, and I were to take an argument, I could think I'd do pretty good at either side if expectations are beneficial or not beneficial. And so, you know, we kind of talked about how having expectations can lead to disappointment, but like, I also believe that expectations can pull us to where we want to go, you know, and we can use expectations in order to succeed in what we're after. You know, I would never start a race if I didn't expect to finish, you know, and things like that. And I can, you know, when I did the marathon, I was hurt, but I expected to finish, and I used that to drag me along. And so I don't think that expectation is completely bad. It's just there's ways to use it more beneficially for us, you know. When I meet clients, I find that if I expect that I'm going to get the job, I carry myself a little differently than if I expect not to get the job when I'm meeting someone for the first time. And so I expect to be successful. I expect to have abundance in my life. And I would probably be disappointed if I didn't have it. So I'm setting myself up, but I also use myself, you know, I set some high expectations, and I land somewhere in between where I'm at, where I throw it out there.
Yeah. What's going on for me is following. Okay. So when we're the desired outcome, the destination, the goal, the achievement, whatever it is we're working towards, what's working for me and what's been very effective for me is falling in love with the process, right? It's not about achieving the goal, yet achieving the goal is important, something that I'm focused on. I want to accomplish, but it's that process of getting to the goal that is, I fall more in love with the process, or with the climb, right? Of getting there. That's where I feel I'm at my best, right? And then if I get to the pinnacle achievement, or to the top, or wherever it is I may be heading, it's like, okay, great, celebrate, I achieved that. But it's, for me, I'm reminded, or what's coming up for me is just to enjoy, or not necessarily enjoy, but to fall in love with the process of getting there. And whether that be the relationship, or whether that be the career, or whether it be a sales goal, or whatever it is, it's like the process of actually going after and obtaining that. It's being in the now and falling in love with the process. Different ways to look at it. That's one way. That's one way for me that I find that I try not to get too attached to the end result, although I fall in love with the process of going after it. I know I'm alive when I'm going after it. You know, there's no better feeling, whether you're in sales, I can relate to this, of like going after the sale, or in the process of communicating the value of this product and service, and just really being in my element and going for it. And if they purchase the services, product, or whatever, it's like, all right, boom, you know, like that's a sense of accomplishment. But the more I'm in the flow and loving what I'm doing, loving how I'm being in the process of going after it, I just think like, you know, that emits a frequency, or an energy, or a vibration. And I think that too helps draw it closer.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, I guess. I don't know. I'm falling in love with the process. Yeah.
And what I'm hearing in there also, in addition to the falling in love part, is an appreciation for the process, right? It's an appreciation of everything that's coming along the way. And embracing the gifts and the learnings, and the, you know, sometimes there's different, like, we think we're going in one direction, and there's this like boom detour sign, and it kind of like veers us off. And initially it might feel like, oh, like I don't want to go, like I was really kind of like going this one direction. So a person who is very fixated on the end result, or like the destination part, and it has to be this way, gets really worked up when there's a detour. Versus someone enjoying the process, Matt, I would imagine like that detour for you is like, whoa, another surprise. Let's see what's behind this door and kind of, go that route. And really take it on with a spirit of where
You said it.
it is the journey.
You said it. Take it on with the spirit of knowing that this is all good. This is what's supposed to be happening. I'm not attached to it.
Mhm.
I'll jump on that. JR, you got something?
Well, I mean, even when I was building my construction company, you want to throw in the word passion. I was so passionate when I was building my company because I was creating something that maybe was even beyond my expectations. And then I even tie in what you just shared, Deana, about surrendering to where it takes me. I never went into construction thinking I was going to be like a bathroom expert. That was not on my radar. But yet now I'm a bathroom expert, and it's been lucrative, and it's led me to where it's led me, and I never expected that way. And now that I own a construction company, I have to find, or it seems that I find other things outside of my construction company to find passion, with my family and my kids. Whereas before, building this company that was my dream and building my dream and then slowly achieving, little pinnacles. And that was just exciting. And then I got there and then I won a bunch of awards, and that's like,
Now what?
okay,
Yeah.
I got to come up with a new thing to get on another journey, know?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're different today than you were 10 years ago when you started your construction business. Who you are, your values and everything is also different too. But I totally relate to what you're saying. The spirit of going after it or being in the flow of when things. So recently, you two have been very close to, my everyday stuff that's going on in life, but I've been looking for a new home, and my daughter and I have been looking around and point I'm trying to make is like, I wanted it to be specific. I wanted a specific neighborhood and X and Y and Z and all these things that I was hoping to find. And I really was focused on it being that and it being that. Lots of houses came, lots of houses went. And we got closer and closer. And I started getting a little anxiety of like, man, are we going to find it? I mean, housing market in Arizona is ridiculous right now, side topic. But what ended up happening is, as of recently, like, it's a miracle. Some people might call it a miracle. To us, I think it's like, well, you created this, right? I mean, I hit the obstacle, Deana, many of them. And every time there was an obstacle, it didn't feel good. But in the moment, I was reminded by you guys and by myself of like, that's not supposed to be. And then moments later, days later, like as in last week, all of a sudden it's like, boom, the house, everything, the XYZ, it was all there. And so it's a powerful reminder for me that my expectation was, I fell out of the attachment. I was like, okay, it's gonna work. And when I did, that's when things started flowing. That's when this house appeared. But it was not, I wasn't in that mindset the whole time. In that moment, you guys probably recall there's moments where I'm like, what am I going to do? I don't know. But when I started to just let go of what I wanted it to had to be, what appeared? Exactly what it was that I was looking for.
So I got to. No,
go ahead. No, go ahead, JR. Go.
You shared that with us because we were on that experience with you while you were house shopping, and for me, what you touched on, which is a little off topic, but it's a beautiful lesson, is when you lost your attachment, because you had locked down a condo, just in case condo, and then you found the house, the just in case house, which was going to be the house that was going to be better than the condo. So you lost the energy, all the drama in, is it going to come? Is it going to happen? And you were good. And then it showed up. And that was a good lesson for me that I learned last week that I've actually been able to kind of see in my life, that when I finally release the expectations and all the energy and the big, then it magically happens. And because we don't need it, then it just shows up, and in my class of manifesting, they tell you to focus on food at first because you don't have as much attachments on food as you do on your dream. You're like, what do you want to eat? Manifest that. And it's easy, anyways, go. That's
so interesting. No, and I was gonna hop on that with the I don't know, I'm kind of interested in kind of sharing, I guess, a little bit more detail, right? Because there's a part where you never lost sight of what you wanted, right? Like that dream, or in your mind, the ideal house that you were looking for,
right.
the criteria, you never lost sight of that. It was still there. But sometimes it's like, how do we manage because I'll get this a lot, and I experience it with some people sometimes, where it's like, well, if I kind of start losing the expectation or I lose the attachment, then it's almost like that picture, or they also sometimes lose sight of what it is that they originally wanted, right? And now it becomes more of like operating more from a scarcity of like, what is it that I can get, and just kind of like shift into that, which isn't what we're like, it's not what we're what we're saying necessarily, right? What we're saying is kind of like, you can have both, and while it doesn't necessarily feel good along the way because all those obstacles are coming up, but how did you manage to like still hold on to the picture, still have that there, with like, what does it look like to hold on to that without the attachment? I want to like, I don't know.
That's good. That's good. That's a great question. And I'm feeling your question. So what does it feel like? What I recall was, call it God, universe, source, but I recall myself surrendering and saying, it's not in my hands. Quit trying to control it. Everything's going to happen the way it's going to happen. And I am grateful for what I've found, whether it's the condo or the backup house, like we're good. And I got into a place of gratitude, and I got into a place of, it's whatever's going to happen is going to happen. It's in God, universe, source, Gus. It's not in my hands. And when I released myself from wanting it to be a certain way, or the expectation, I'll also segue into this too. And okay, I'll go there. Like, I went to the house and I went to the neighborhood, and Morgan and I, my daughter, we sat out front and we visualized that we were playing in the house and playing in the backyard and walking the dog and sitting in the front yard. And me and my daughter, we started visualizing this coming to fruition, and like this being the house. So there's really, we went even further into, and that could be expectation. I just went to visualization. But your question, Deana, was really good. I remember letting go and surrendering.
So that reminder. Go ahead.
I remember letting go and saying, it's not in my hands. Okay. And whatever's supposed to be is going to be, and I'm okay. Everything's going to be okay. But when I was in it, I mean, because there was moments where I was like, emotional, like frustrated with what I kept banging my head on the wall, like running into obstacle. And I got to a point where I was concerned, worried. It wasn't looking the way I wanted it to look. I started to try to control it. And then, I went from here totally upside down into like, it's all going to work out. I'm going to find it. I mean, we all visualized it too, but that was a great question. I mean, that's very powerful, I think, is this the surrender.
No, thank you for sharing that, because then it shows the both and possibility. Because a lot of times people get stuck. It's like either I visualize it and it has to be that one thing and that's all I can see, and not going with the flow, right? Because if something would have shown up way earlier, like it's almost like all the little just in case places were showing up, and all the no's were showing up in order to lead you straight to this place, which is, this is what was destined for you. This is what's meant for you. And it was that surrender part that allows us to go from the either or into the both. And you can hold that picture and be grateful for where you're at and appreciate, the opportunities ahead of you. Congratulations, by the way.
Flowing. Oh, thank you. The both of you too have been holding this vision. I'm like, hey, put this little extra prayer out there. Let's, but it was such a valuable lesson. And I think it was the best lesson of 2021 for me so far, although we're only 30 days in, but it really hit me like a ton of bricks when I was like, this is gold. This is so valuable as a reminder for me to trust, to flow, to allow, to just know that I'm on the right track, and to fall in love with this whole process of obstacle, whatever. Like, it's what I teach, it's what I think about. And even, being an avid mindset student or whatever experience, it's like, it doesn't matter how much experience you've got. We're all gonna, I fell right into the same cycle of thinking of that, just went back. I would like to suggest that we all do, no matter what we know, we all fall into this stuff. It's trying to
Catch it
attempting
earlier.
to like catch it when you're in it, and having great circle like this leadership circle and you guys is like really incredibly valuable, because you can't read the label from the inside of the jar. When you're in it, you can't see what the ingredients are. You're on the inside, you can't see what you can't see. And so having great friends and having great circle is super important, because you guys pulled me out a few times like, it's all gonna be okay, and I'm like,
No, in this circle too, you can't come whining about because of this. You're like, oh, I did it. You can't, we're like, no, we're all powerful. We get to create our deck, go out. It's going to be okay. It's like, you can come in whining. We all have our moments. And it was like, okay, let's get it out. And then let's go to solution. And so with friends like this, it's almost impossible to, fail. I don't even believe in failure, but I mean, like holding each other and seeing each other, succeeding in whatever mission they're on at the moment.
And I'd like to kind of throw it out there to the audience, anyone listening now or later, but just kind of reflecting on, bringing to mind a time that you really wanted something, or you had a desired outcome, an expectation for something, or just the desired outcome. And then sort of like, what's a point in time where you experience the surrendering, letting go, and then having it all completely work out the way that it was meant.
Yeah, drop a comment if you can recall exactly what that is, or if it's happening all the time. However, we'd love to hear about the share or the magic that you experienced, or where you may have. It's happening all the time. It's happening all the time. And so Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe, if you guys aren't familiar with him, is one of my favorite teachers that I've been studying over the past couple of years. He talks about controlling the field, right? And so that's, to me, rather than trying to control the outcome or the matter, but it's controlling the mind, controlling this. And this is a prime example. To me, what I'm relating this to is, it's like, I'm not able to control the end result, the matter, but I can control the field. So like the feeling, the frequency, the thoughts that I'm having, the surrender that I chose to go to, the happiness, the gratitude that I chose to be in, like that I control. That's what I do. I can control. And when I do that, we emit a frequency, right? And we can bring it closer to us. I know I talked to you guys about this. Some of you might think it's a little woo-woo, but we're all energy. And so what kind of energy am I putting out there? The gratitude energy is one of the strongest. So if I'm sitting in that space, whatever it is coming towards me. The more I'm in gratitude for the here and now, the more it can come to me. But the moment I'm like, it's not working, it needs to look like this, how come? Oh man, we're just putting bricks on bricks and building walls, that won't flow. It can't.
Go ahead, JR. You're about to say something.
The lesson I learned with the beginning of COVID, let's just bring it back to like February. I was overwhelmed in my company. I had a lot of bills. I wasn't necessarily profitable. I had the cash flow, but it was almost like a Ponzi scheme. I'd have to get the next job to have money for this one. And it was overwhelming. And when COVID came in, I do a lot of condo renovations, and all that stopped. And so I had no income. I was already behind, financially. And it was almost like an excuse to give up. Like I don't believe in failure, but it was out of my control. That COVID was stronger than me at the moment. That it doesn't matter how much I want to go into these buildings and work. And this one was one I had to surrender to. And so I kind of surrendered to the company was going to fail. And I was okay with it because my ego, it wasn't my fault. It was COVID. And at that moment, I didn't know what COVID was, and it was bigger than me. And living in an island with food coming in and stuff, it was kind of like bunker down, get our food. And then, so we talk about surrendering and then raising the vibration. All I did was play with my kids. And I was a little concerned what the future was going to look like. So I was in a constant state of gratitude because I wasn't sure what tomorrow was going to look like. And so by playing with my kids, doing what I love, and being in that higher vibration of gratitude, I started manifesting all this stuff that I couldn't get if I would have worked my ass off to get. And that's where I stumbled upon this. And then by all of a sudden, I learned that it doesn't have to be the hard work, the surrender, and things started just happening ways that I didn't think they would happen. And it was a lesson for me to learn that when I finally did surrender, then all of a sudden it got easier. And then I got more than I thought,
Mhm.
and so it's just, we can only control so much. And by releasing expectations, sometimes it's better than we could ever expect.
What can we control?
Our energy, our mindset, our responses to things happening around us.
That's it. Control the field. That's all we can control is our thoughts on what is happening. And believe it or not, it's pretty darn effective when we take control of our thoughts and our feelings. To think is to create, guys. We've been saying, we've been taught this for many, many years. It's so true. And it goes back decades upon decades of every thought we have.
What's kind of brewing right now in my mind is the power of language, right? Our thoughts sometimes they may appear in terms of like things that we say to ourselves, or thoughts that are kind of like sentence structures or pictures. So what do those pictures and what's the language around it? What feelings are being evoked from the choice of words? And, a lot of times it's like, even by finding different words, right? Like reframing something, the power of reframing our thoughts, it changes our energy, and it changes how we show up. It changes, I don't know, I'm still playing with the word expectation. I'm like, I know it can have a bunch of different meanings, but there's an element of it that it's like, it's the anticipation, right? That hope, like if we're kind of waiting for something big and great to happen, we have a certain energy around that, right? It might be a little bit anxious because we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but there's a feeling of excitement with it, versus I think of it as like entitlement, like people who kind of expect it to look a certain way. People should be doing this, or, my partner should be, fill in the blank with whatever shoulds, we have of ourselves and of others. And the energy of that is so different than just like, how awesome is it that they fill in the blank? How awesome is it that that little shift can make a huge difference in how we feel. And we know that how we feel affects how we act and behave. And that's directly related to the results that we produce.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's beautiful. Like the language, I mean, what you're talking about is like how we say things that we want. Even if it's an affirmation, there's a good, better, and best. Well, there's no best, but there's more powerful ways to state things. And you could say things like, today was terrible, or you could say things like, I learned a lot today. And I remember Marshall Thurber, I called him one day and he was real busy, and he's like, my life is very abundant right now. And he could have said, I'm busy as shit, my life, it's very abundant right now. And like you said, how we frame it is powerful,
And I think that resonates especially for me around failure, because we have, like, again, I know you don't believe there's anything called failure, and all failure is like, all there is feedback, right? This just means that, okay, it didn't go as we wanted it to, or as we expected it to. So what do we learn? How do we make a shift around it? So I remember I was at a class and someone was talking about, okay, they kind of reframed the failure into like, here's an opportunity. And failures just became opportunities to learn, to grow, to do things differently, to experiment. And it changed the outcome. And even the energy of like, it's like, instead of saying like, oops, I messed up, it's kind of just like, oh, found another opportunity.
99% of the people that I know in my circle, or successful people, leaders, business owners, or whatever, their frame of mind when they're talking about a setback is the responsible approach. It's not a victim approach. It's not a, this is happening, they did this, this broke down. It's all responsibility, and it's all about what they're learning, right? When a loss takes place or when a setback occurs, they take full responsibility. So when framing it, as Marshall did, as I have an abundant life right now, I totally love that. Because I play the busy game quite often. I think I'm going to start going and I'm totally abundant.
Ultra abundant life, Matt.
Ultra abundance, right? And it's just a beautiful way to look at it, rather than and I feel like the successful people, just people responsible. I mean, you got people that are going after their dreams and after their goals or whatever, that that experience abundance, they're not coming from a victim mindset. They're coming from their frame of mind and how they see things is more of the responsible approach. I'm learning today, the setback occurred. Wow, I just learned something valuable, So it's a good notice. I think, hearing you speak about that, JR and Deana, it's like, it's all in how we frame it, all in how we look at it. Again, what we control.
And I think that the key for that learning piece of the opportunity, like, it's how are we going to do things differently because this one, quote unquote setback or opportunity happened, right? So there's sort of what'll distinguish people is you can kind of just stop and be like, okay, there was something to learn, and then nothing changes as a result, versus, okay, I want to take in the learnings and I want to implement whatever it is that I've learned. So it's constantly like there's that improvement, and we're never going to reach 100% performance. I mean, again, that's relative too, right? According to what standard, but we are always we're always 100%. It's just 100% of whatever it was we were committed to creating.
And what you said, it's as far as, it's almost like your pain threshold too, like how much you can take and how much growth you can create. I like to learn on the fly. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm learning while I'm doing it. It can be painful. I can make very public mistakes that can be embarrassing or painful or sometimes financially troublesome, but at the same time, I'm learning quickly. And so I think with a good, healthy relationship with failure, mistakes, or as Marshall says, tuition, we can get, if you're giving yourself permission to make mistakes and you're not beating yourself up, and if you really embrace the fact that there are opportunities for us to learn, and that's where our muscles are grown, you're unstoppable. That's how we grow. And I know so many people that want to have a perfect plan, and they wait to do what they're going to do until they have the perfect plan, and they have such a perfect plan and that they took years to do, and then they realize the plan is wrong. But they're locked into this plan that they just spent 3 years creating or whatever, and they're forcing it, as opposed to maybe not having a plan, jumping in and right away going, oh, we want to do this. And 3 years from now, you're totally ahead of the curve, where, it just, as long as you give yourself permission to fail or learn publicly.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, it's that permission to fail, or permission to adapt, like, it strengthens our adaptability muscle, right? Like, that's where we can be flexible and we can be the water, right? Where it's like, we can go with the flow, and wherever it's going, the energy isn't spent on, but it has to look this way and it has to be this. And like, no, we're not going to do it any other way. It's like, versus let's see what's possible. Let's go with it. I love it, JR, because you're always really big on, okay, let's just go out there and mess up big time. Like, let's mess up huge and then be able to kind of learn from it and just know what doesn't work. It's let's eliminate the what doesn't work quicker. So let's go out there and fail, because that's the only way we're going to know it doesn't work.
Yeah,
so much to learn.
Conduct electricity.
So much to learn, and JR's given us all great permission. It's like, let's just do it. Let's put the podcast on. So we moved from a group over to a page, realize it's way more user-friendly. But there's moments like that where it's just like, let's give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen? Let's fail, or let's learn. Let's learn is what it would come out of. Let's grow, let's learn, yeah.
And publicly grow in front of people, and hopefully give you guys permission to mess up, because we don't know what we're doing, but we're starting before we know what we're doing, and hopefully you give yourself permission to go make a fool out of yourself publicly.
Go for it, right.
And I think this is one of the things that inspires me too from both of you gentlemen, is the ability, like the reminder of like, let's have fun, right? Like, if whatever it is we're doing, even it's a lot easier to learn from and accept when things don't go the way we expect them to, where we want them to, when we're enjoying the process. Like, enjoying the process is having fun, and whatever comes our way, when we have a smile on our face and we're in good spirits and we have great energy, feels very different than, being super like rigid and it has to look a certain way. And like, we're just always like frowning, and it doesn't even sit the same way.
Yeah.
And so thank you guys for the ability and the opportunity to have fun and grow in this whole process.
That's what I was saying earlier too. And I like that we can actually apply that to this. It's like, falling in love and being passionate about the process, like where this point B destination is, you know, there's not the expectation of it has to be this. I mean, we've got ideas and we've got goals and we've got, you know, concepts that we're like, oh, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. But we're falling in love and being passionate about the whole process and jumping in every Tuesday and bringing on outstanding guests and leaders and, you know, growing, learning, right? And so this is it in action, like the passion in action right now.
Passion in action.
Well, and none of us know
we're
where this is actually going to lead. Right. And that's what, you know, this is live action. We do not necessarily have expectations. We have some things that we would like. We'd like, you know, but it's like, who knows? We could end up, you know, it could be a morning talk show.
No, surrender. Well, who knows, right? Could be.
We'll just do the best we can, see what happens.
And we got a lot to learn, and we're cool with that. And we're here, like, being vulnerable and learning right in front of the crowd, right in front of all of our colleagues, right in front of our friends, our family. You are on the leadership circle, on the inside of the circle, because you chosen to like this page, and well, we're here doing it each and every week. So we'll dance with that. So we went into expectations, and we ended up here. Isn't that fun how we do that? I mean, we bring up this concept, and then it's like, oh, we have no idea.
Beauty of it, right? It's like, you know, speaking to someone over here who's like super, like a lot of times it's like, okay, well, I kind of want to know more information. Let's kind of have like a structure or a skeleton. The permission granted here to just be like, trusting that it's going to go wherever it's intent, like wherever it needs to go for today, right? And and believing that there's a higher force that's kind of that's guiding it, and hopefully we're being inspired to take it places wherever it needs to be. We're just we're just mediums or messengers or tools for that.
I like the metaphor paintbrush. I'm just a paintbrush.
I like
that. Creating a masterpiece, right? Well, if we dive back into, you know, so kind of a recap here, if you'd like to, of gratitude. I think gratitude, surrendering, or what did you want to, how did you want to finish this up? We got a few more minutes, you know, we're trying to stay within our agreement time, 45 minutes or so each week. But, you know, what comes up for me is there's been some really big lessons this year of surrendering, flowing, not getting stuck on something, you know, all right, I'll go here. So there's been the struggle that I've had in the past of like, call it commitment. Okay. So there's a plan coming up, say March, April, and it's like getting attached to whatever comes in April. Like, let's say that there's this trip that we're talking about taking. It's like, you know, I kind of dance and teeter-totter with like, well, I don't know, because if that's where I'm supposed to be, then that's where I'm going to go, but who knows what might happen. And so I know, it's not just me, but I know it's definitely something that I have to remember to be in the flow. I think I'm in the flow when I'm doing that, but I'm also like, okay, with this conversation of expectation, like I expect to get on an airplane and I expect to fly to destination B. And if I don't do that, that's not responsible to take care of my plane ticket and get that done right now. Right. So am I making sense, Deana? You got that look. So there's the expectation, right? Like, all right, so I'm expected to be in a location come April. I've made a commitment. So in order for, I mean, I need to buy that plane ticket to get to my point B.
Unless you're driving.
Unless I'm driving there, okay.
However, if your intention is to fly there, then yes, you do need that plane ticket.
Right. So what am I trying to say? So what I'm getting at is like, we're talking about expectation. Like there's areas where I have a difficult time where I just want to be in the flow and like not just surrender. It's going to be whatever happens.
So
there's areas like that require
the expectations. In this case, right? The expectations is from outside. It's what's expected of you. You're expected to be there, right? Have you, and in part, it's because you've chosen into that.
Correct.
Made that commitment.
I'm with you.
So the response, like that's the whole part of like like coming from responsible, right? It's taking that whole thing, you know, taking the steps that are needed, that are required to ensure that, I would even say that's more of an agreement versus an expectation.
Cool. Yeah. And that, I appreciate you dissecting that and going a level deeper, because I totally agree. If I have a commitment or an agreement with another party, then that's my duty as my responsibility as a leader to make sure that I fulfill that. I just dance in this place of like, well, let's see, if I'm supposed to be there, I'll be there.
And
Not
here's
always
the
effective. I don't recommend this, you know.
Well, but here's the thing also is you can take every single action step to ensure that you will be there, right? You can buy your plane ticket, you can arrange for a dog sitter, you can arrange for childcare, you can arrange for everything. And still, if you're not meant to be there, you won't be there.
Correct. And back to the house. So I had the condo, had the house, had these things as like, okay, well, they're there in case, right? And so the same kind of thing applies. Get the house sitter, get the dog sitter, get all that lined up, and that's where I'm supposed to be. However, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there with some special people. I already know what's up. I'm already excited about this. Just figured, JR, what are you chewing on over there, bro? You're looking at
A couple different things.
eyeball.
So what Deana said triggered me, or triggered a thought in me, never triggered me, but stimulated a thought in me, was like other people's expectations of us.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of pressure we put on ourselves to live up to other people's expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that could be another conversation altogether. But how much of what you're doing is because other people expect you to do it, and some of that is I have children, they expect me to feed them, right? Some of that justified, I expect to feed them too. But sometimes, you have a boss who expects you to do things that you're not signed up with, you're not okay with. And then you're in that, do I live up to their expectations? Do I have to say no? Where do I draw the line? And again, that's its own conversation. That's what I was smiling at when you were talking. But what I wanted to leave people with is the power of releasing the energy of your expectations. And if you're paying attention and you practice this, I think you'll find evidence to prove that once you release whatever real energy we have on something, that sometimes is all that's holding it back from happening. And so, if we're really tied up into how it has to be, so much so that it's going to make us uncomfortable,
strangling it, yeah.
Then surrender and watch what happens. Or like within some of the manifestation tools and techniques I've learned, is you write your goals down, or what you intend, you do your little ceremony, let it go, and then don't think about it. Just go raise your vibration, go do what you love. Don't even worry about that. Don't put energy on it. Get clear on what you want, announce it, and then go play the drums if you're a drummer, and watch what happens. So that's what I wanted to at least say.
That's a great closure. I like it. So true. We had episode 20 being listed today. So there's a leadership circle group that we did have, where there's a ton of, we've been doing this every week for like 6 months or so. So moving forward, each and every Tuesday, you can count on us for being here on the Leadership Circle page. Once again, we appreciate you coming over to the page, liking the page, sharing the page, commenting. Let us know if you can relate to some of what's being talked about. And we've got moderator between us right now. We're moderating comments as they come in. We'll try to get to them, and also looking at different guests that are going to be joining us here soon. So we'll just put that out there and surrender to where that goes. I'm going to pass it over to you, Deana, and say thank you to the both of you guys. Each and every Tuesday, you make life so beautiful, just being able to dance with you guys. So thank you. I appreciate it. Always good to be here each and every week with both of you. Thank you.
Likewise. I think the sentiment kind of it flows right through. Just want to say thank you to everyone out there who tuned in or is watching this later. And just invitation for the week, just have fun. Use awesome language and opportunities, embrace opportunities, and surround yourself with an awesome tribe, because the tribe helps to reframe some of the obstacles, or to kind of keep us focused on the raising our energy and getting what we want. That's my invitation.
Indeed.
For the week.
And I would just encourage people, if there's a topic or subject they'd like us to explore, to reach out to us in more of the comment threads, and we'll more than likely explore that topic. And if there's a guest, or if you're someone who wants to be on the show or something, I think we're going to kind of explore where this goes with guests and stuff. And we probably expect to have a guest once a month. And again, we know how expectations go, so we'll see what really happens. And
right.
you guys for joining us. We appreciate you guys. We wish you guys love, abundance, joy, and laughter.
Yeah.
And aloha.
Be love, be
Hello.
love, be light, be aloha. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next week.
Peace.
Thank you.